from your experience, David, is it which one is, I guess, more detrimental to the fathers in this situation? Is it just purely ignorance, or is it the information that, as you mentioned, they heard it from John, who is connected by me by five different people, or is it a combination of both?
It's a combination of both, because they think that they heard the story about John in Pennsylvania, that that's what's going to be in their case. And so they think that they've done their research. And that's just not true. They're not actually calling a lawyer, consulting with the lawyer to get an opinion beforehand, to figure out how to position themselves for success, to figure out what are they really facing, and what are the likely scenarios that a judge is going to grant custody. You know, men tend to be very much like, what's the problem? What's the solution? How do I get there? And okay, problem, I want to see my kids more. Solution, talk to Marty. He took me over to his buddy Tony, whose cousin Marty had Mark, who understood that John had this happen to him, so therefore I'm going to get the same thing. And it's like, no, you can't do that. You have to like dig in and do your research and recognize like your fact pattern versus that fact pattern. You know, the situation I get a lot of is guys coming in and they're like, I want my 50% custody. I want my kids every other week. I'm like, okay, let's talk about how that's going to work. You live in Long Beach, California on the coast. She lives in Riverside, California, 2.5 hours away in the desert. Where did your kid go to school? Well, in Riverside. Okay. So if the kid is with you for a week, are you telling me that you're planning on commuting 2.5 hours every morning to drop that child off at school, go back to Long Beach to your job, go back to Riverside to pick the kid up after school, and then come home? At a minimum, you're looking at 10 hours a day on the road. When are you supposed to do any work? And then they're like, oh, I hadn't thought of that. Like, yeah, that's why you need to actually think this stuff through. Like, if you want 50% custody, great. I totally back you in that. Let's set up a strategy. Let's take a look at what's really going on in the kid's life and then change your life to make that a viable possibility. So if the kid's living and going to school in Riverside, guess where you're going to be living? You're moving, dude. You're moving out to Riverside. Ask for a transfer. Set your life up in a way that you can be successful.
Do you find men in general to be flexible in that regard, where if they want to have the 50% or even sole custody, they're willing to either transfer, relocate, or live out there in the example you gave in Riverside versus in Long Beach?
The successful ones are willing to upend their life and do what's best for their children. Most men have too many other responsibilities and they have to make choices. You know, by the time they've got a former girlfriend and a kid in Riverside, they probably also picked up a new girlfriend in Long Beach. Are they willing to let that relationship go? Oh, you have 2 kids with her and they're in school there? Well, you're kind of stuck now because you have to be a parent to those kids. And the reality is, like, you've already on some level made the choice that you're living in Long Beach over Riverside. And so you have to make those decisions at some point, and a lot of times those decisions are already made for you and you didn't even realize you were making them.